welcome back to the proceedings. It's time now for our second session of this year's DSP Leaders World Forum. The session that we've got upcoming is Enabling the Autonomous Network with AI. Now, last year's AI native session kicked off our extensive coverage of AI applications within the telecoms network. Investment is well underway across multiple AI use cases, but as demand on the network increases, where should telcos be focusing their efforts and resources to accelerate the value of AI? And what additional challenges will they face in their journey towards the fully autonomous network? We've got a fantastic panel lined up for you today to discuss these topics, but we're going to kick off this session with a progress report conversation. Now, we're going to be having a number of these progress report chats during the course of these 2 days, many of them with the session co-hosts from last year. To get us up to speed on what's been happening in the past 12 months, I'm delighted to say that joining us right now to give us a progress report on telco AI is Ahmed Hafez, VP of Technology Strategy from Deutsche Telekom. Ahmed, if you'd like to join me on stage. Ahmed, great to see you, thank you. So, Ahmed, welcome back to the DSP Leaders World Forum stage.
I need to put the mic back because they were taking a picture. They told me.
All right.
So
that's it. It's well in place.
I'm really delighted to be here. So I really have an appreciation for this event. So it's very cozy. The faces are very familiar, and it feels very comfortable to be amongst you. So.
Okay, excellent. Now, of course, you were here last year, of course, as the co-host for this session that last year was titled Creating a Framework for the AI Native Telco. And that was an incredibly popular session and really well received at the time and afterwards as well on demand. Now, they say that a week is a long time in politics, and much can be, the same can be said for the AI sector. And as a result, since you were here last, a great deal has happened in terms of AI and telecom. What for you have been the key trends in the telecom sector during the past few, in the last year with regards to AI?
Right, so there has been a number of developments. I will start with the byproducts of what happened. I mean, generative AI have took us all with surprise. Last year was the hype. I would say it was on the peak of the hype. Now it's actually going down a little bit. So getting more to realities and expectations and right expectations. But what happened is that this hype created a huge momentum, not only for generative AI, but for AI itself, so for any traditional AI, predictive AI. So you see companies now have a lot of focus on AI, so suddenly AI become a thing. I mean, we've been working on AI for many years. So this momentum helped us significantly. So actually it accelerated things that are even not really generative AI. The other thing that happened also that we started going into a generative AI, getting our hands dirty with it, if it's correct to say, to understand what are its strengths and weaknesses. And we started to realize that maybe the expectations were inflated a little bit, at least at this stage of development, and there are things that it can fit in and things that we have to be cautious on. To give you a precise example, we're very comfortable to use predictive AI today in closed-loop automation, but it's not the same when it comes to generative AI. I mean, we cannot see the precision and accuracy coming out of generative AI that would actually give us this confidence of having closed-loop automation yet. And I'm saying yet because developments are happening as we speak. But there are many things that we thought could be very, very challenging, became no, it's not that challenging. Things are developing. So to give you some examples, compute is improving. I mean, we discussed compute last time, and there has been a bit of, I think I was showing a slide with 500 more times of demand on compute. I think you have seen the surge in compute. Unfortunately, I didn't realize myself that I should buy shares in NVIDIA, but that was too late. But in any case, this is happening, and it's still a problem. So the other part was actually, we expected also the foundation models would get improved, and they got significantly improved, but also we see now small language models and other techniques, even for training and fine-tuning, that would enhance the whole story of the needs of a compute and how we actually employ the technology. So yeah, things have been to a large extent clarified, but we figured out other problems. So as you go, you develop the knowledge. And of course, we had the AI Act, meanwhile, so which was an important step. I mean, I think Europe, one of the leading areas is regulations. So it's good. It's good to say that we're leading in some aspects in Europe. So, but yeah, that these were essentially the most important changes that we have seen last year.
Okay. So is it possible for the telecom sector, I mean, we heard just a little bit earlier in the panel about innovation, that sometimes the pace of things doesn't keep up with expectations. Can the telecom sector keep pace with AI developments? Is that in any way possible?
It's a good question, but let me maybe take a step back and talk about technology development in general. Then I come to AI. There is a term now called digital dexterity, which is actually describing the gap between the huge transformation in technology and the level of absorption we can absorb. And actually it's happening everywhere. So yes, the pace of technology is much faster than what we can absorb and what we can take and what we can implement. But this will continue to be the case. Maybe this curve goes down a little bit because if there is no adoption, there will be no further innovation. So it will slow down. But nevertheless, coming to AI, the point is with AI depends on the role you want to play. If you want to play as an AI provider, then you want to create models for industries, do things like that, train models and take that, then you would have to keep up with that pace. Then the challenge is much higher. If you decide, no, I will actually use these technologies for the use cases I would employ in my network or for my customers or my customer service, BSS and so on, your level of pace would change because you would rely on partnering and you would rely maybe on buy more than make. So this would balance. So I think we should consider, I mean, of course, every operator is different, but you can consider a mix between the make versus buy in order to make sure that you can sustain that pace because we are in the heart of the changes happening there. But as we go, things will actually stabilize more and more, and then you can take decisions or make much easier. But today, maybe it's a little bit immature. Unless you go into, you have huge business, you see an outlook of great opportunities business-wise, and you decide that you want to hunt for that, then it will be a different game.
Okay. We also heard earlier on in that innovation session about the importance of collaboration, and I guess this is an area where it's absolutely paramount. What kind of pressure does the pace of development and the requirements around AI put on companies like Deutsche Telekom and everybody else in the telecom sector?
Okay, so let me take four layers so to structure a little bit the answer because it's a very big challenge. If you take the data layer, on top of it, the infrastructure, then we have the foundational models. I will focus a little bit on Gen AI for now, and then the tools and the AI platforms. If I start from data, we are already facing a big challenge that even though we are working with standards, the packet gateways generate data for every supplier in a different manner. Every packet gateway or every function in the network core, RAN, you name it, have roughly about 10 different types of files or streams that are generated per function. I mean, how many functions we have in the networks and how many replications of functions we have. And the very challenging part is that the data models are different. Even the definition of the attribute value pairs are different. And then if you want to take a use case, take anomaly detection, you say, okay, we can do anomaly detection. It's a basic use case. It can easily be done by generative AI or predictive AI. And then you do it in one operator, and you are a group, you have 11 operators, and you want to roll that out. You would figure out if there are different suppliers, you have to go again and again and repeat big part of this chain again. It's not easily copyable. So if we want to go to scale, we need certain level of commonality, at least on the data layer. We need to make sure that we have these data definitions properly done. And it's something that, of course, suppliers can help a lot there because we can align on at least common baseline. Then you go to infrastructure. And then looking at infrastructure, I mean, you have public clouds, of course, and hyperscalers, and also the on-prem part. And I believe we will need a hybrid of that. And hybrid of that, and where you put the data. So, and then how you access the data, then portability of data, and then the cost of moving data. So this is also hindering this kind of cooperation and openness. So this is something that needs to be solved. You go a layer above on the foundational models and you find out either you have open source when you have some freedom, but it's not as strong as the proprietary ones. But if you look at the proprietary ones, they're not portable. So you have to use them on a specific platform. You can't take them on-prem. Very, very minor exceptions, but mostly you're stuck with them where they are. And then you need to deal with them. But what about confidential information? What solution can I do to deal with confidential information that I don't want to put in public cloud, for example? So this is another issue to be resolved. If we go to the tools layer, and this is a very interesting one, because, suppliers are here, and I talk also to many suppliers about AI, and every supplier comes with a very nice use case, fantastic use case, but comes with the tools and everything down to the, not to the infrastructure, but including the models, and I come say, oh, this is a solution we have. Right, but I cannot have 100 set of different tools for every use case. If I have some tools for sun and another set of tools for energy efficiency, this has to be one. They cannot be fragmented. And this is another challenge. So we need some kind of interoperability and an understanding that you can plug into an API platform, an AI platform, and you can still work with different use cases and implement your software.
Okay. Very quickly, because we're going to move on to the panel, but a quick word on skills. What have you seen in terms of the developments around skills requirements in the past year?
Right. We have been running huge upskilling programs. But the point that I think I don't know if we're all missing, but probably we're missing. There is the skills on the what. So learning new things, learning how to deal with AI, how to manage AI. But there is a skill on the how. How do you approach it? The behavioral part. Because we often miss this part because people also have some resistance to change. People are used to do things, our employees are used to do things in a certain manner. You want to tell them that this will change. And eventually, in order for us to reap the value of AI, we should not be using AI for very, very narrow views. So today we have a process. The process consists of 10 steps. You take step 3, 4, and 6, and then you put AI. But we need to rethink the entire process via AI. This requires that we think in a different way. So this is a behavioral element. It's not about skilling on the what, it's skilling on the how. So you think from a different perspective. And this is something that we need to work more on.
Okay, excellent. So Ahmed, it's great that you're going to be staying with us for the panel. And for the panel, you're going to be sitting
I'm not going
absolutely
to leave the
there. You're staying right there.
He told me multiple times I should not move. So,
so it's thanks very much for joining us, giving us an update for what you've seen in the past year. So a round of applause, please, for Ahmed. Thank you very much. So while we transition from the interview to the panel, we're going to play our next highlights video, during which our panel speakers are going to join us here on stage. This highlights video appropriately is from our AI Native Telco Summit, with some footage also from our December event, Telcos and the AI event.
Now we in Telefonica, for example, have more than 100 use cases with AI that we use across the life cycle of the network and across our operations, from the beginning of the process of assurance to the end. And for example, even before the process begins, or even before you monitor the network, we use it to do predictive maintenance, for example. As we are getting all this data and trying to predict faults before they even happen.
We're starting to develop a business case for a centralized RAN, cloudified RAN. If we were to put some benefits in that we would gain through the application of AI and machine learning from that platform, we're going to have to do a really good job on characterizing the cost-benefit analysis in that.
At SoftBank, we are investing massively to do generative AI. So we are building our own data center optimized for AI, and also we are putting more resources to develop our own LLM. I can't tell the details so far, but we are making massive investment to optimize and also to utilize our data more efficiently for telecommunication business.
The point is, can I talk with my network? Can I send Gen AI and tell him, for instance, at this moment, which are the number of cells that they are saturated in Barcelona and around the Fira? So which is the behavior of the network? What I need to do trying to improve it? And we are using Gen AI technology trying to manage the network in this way.
The way we view artificial intelligence for us is as a continuum of the predictive artificial intelligence we've been doing the last years and the generative, which is coming, which is really bringing a lot of UX capability and gives us the chance to even go the next level.
Okay, great. It's time to get stuck into our panel, enabling the autonomous network with AI. As Guy mentioned earlier, each session has its own poll. One question, 3 answer choices. You can just pick one. Here is the question that we've got for this session. When will AI enable telco networks to be truly zero touch without any human intervention? So please go ahead and vote on the TelecomTV website. You'll find all of the polls in the DSP Leaders World Forum section on the agenda page. And we'll take a look at how the voting has gone at the end of this session. So at this point, I want to introduce our co-host for this session. Delighted to be joined here by Amol Phadke. He is the EVP and Group Chief Technology Officer at the Telenor Group. Amol, you've been to DSP Leaders before. Thanks very much for returning as a co-host. Great to see you here.
Thank you, Ray. Thank you for having me. Hello, everybody. Yes, I'm back wearing a different T-shirt. But yes, I'm really looking forward to this panel. Let's meet the panelists first. And
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're going to give your opening address in just a couple of minutes. But first, let's find out who is on our panel. So if we can start at the far end and get our panelists to introduce themselves.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. This is my first time here, so thank you for having me. I'm Juan Manuel Caro. I'm Director of Autonomous Network at Telefónica Group.
Hello, great to be here. I'm Nick Willits. I'm the CEO of the TM Forum.
Hello, Manish, CTO Dell Technologies. Great to be back here.
So I won't repeat.
Hi, hello everyone. Nice to be here, my first time. So I'm Mabel Pos and I'm in Vodafone and I head the digital and zero touch operations.
Hello, this is Madhu. I'm Chief Data Officer for the Rakuten Mobile and this is first time for me and delighted, excited for this panel.
Okay, great. Thank you very much everybody for joining us. So, Amol, without further ado, if you'd like to make your way up to our lectern for your DSP Leaders address. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ray. So, as I was saying, I asked Ray during the break if I can talk about something interesting. The topic I had in mind was general elections in the US, general elections in the UK, and then if you had time, general elections in India. But Ray sort of vetoed me and said, no, we have a much more interesting topic of AI. So I'm going to talk about that today instead. But first of all, great to see all of you. As Ahmed said in the beginning of our panel today, AI continues to drive a huge amount of news in the media. In fact, if there is one technology that I see a lot more over and over again, every week, every day, that's AI. And it's obvious why that is, because all of the analysts are sort of unequivocal in their view of the trillions of dollars of benefits that AI is supposed to sort of offer us. But at the same time, we also have to be mindful of the fact that a lot of that is also hype. And I was looking at the previous panel and you had this interesting poll, Ray, where we sort of were distinguishing between where innovation comes from. And majority of that innovation was coming from our vendor partners. And I must also say that a lot of this hype has also been generated by our vendor partners. And actually, when I was one of those vendor partners, we call it business development, Ray. And I think we need to just also be conscious of that a little bit because obviously a lot more investment has gone into building the compute infrastructure and building the hardware layers and the LLMs on top and the cloud platforms that support all of that. So it's natural that there will be a lot of interest that all of those things get used. Otherwise, we're going to have a much bigger problem on return on investment on all of that billions of dollars of investments that's happening. So it's worth keeping that in mind as we look at this problem and how we actually benefit from AI has a lot to do with how we actually work with the ecosystem. So at Telenor, the way we sort of looked at it was we looked at our entire span of operations in all our markets and we came to the conclusion that there's a huge amount of use cases that a telco could look at. But in order for us to sort of attack all of that immediately would not be feasible. And so when you look at where the biggest benefit is, about 80% of the benefit that we see in Telenor comes in 4 areas: customer service, marketing, sales, network and autonomous network and operations, which is the topic of the panel today, and then product development, IT development, software development. So these are the 4 areas that Telenor is planning to sort of address, and we have already started. We have about 250 use cases that we as Telenor have already started to pilot. Again, going back to the comment you made at the beginning, I would say 95% of them are AI and 5% of them are Gen AI. But we, of course, call all of it Gen AI because we want to support the hype that's happening there. I would also say that within network itself, I don't think we have really gone into the depth yet of exactly which areas would benefit the most. There are obviously 4 areas, and we will talk about it in our panel. There is the whole design and building of the networks. Then there is, of course, the provisioning of the network, and then how do you assure those networks, and then finally how you sort of capacity plan and optimize those networks. So each of those big areas requires us to sort of really concretely look at how AI can truly give us a benefit. But then we also came up with a program inside Telenor, because it could be network, but it could be customer service, and regardless of which area we focus into, for us to really benefit and not get sort of caught up in the hype, there are 5 dimensions that often get overlooked because we get obsessed on delivering use cases, but there are these 5 other things that I am quite passionate about, and we are driving that in Telenor. First is the people dimension. There is still a huge knowledge gap inside the industry on people actually getting trained on AI. At Telenor, we have 12,000 people, and I would say only 10% of them are actually AI aware today. So there's no point us building thousands of use cases if none of our Telenor employees can actually use it. So that would be something to just deep dive on in the panel. The second big important dimension is the ecosystem partnerships. You know, Telenor and all other large colleagues of mine in the telco audience today, I would have a question which I ask myself every day: how would you do an RFP on AI? Like, I struggle to understand how you would actually do a commercial negotiation. Because it's a completely different ecosystem play. You really need to build an ecosystem with 5 or 6 constituents to build a solution, and that's a very different mindset. So ecosystem is another area to look at. Third important dimension is responsible AI. You mentioned the AI Act. When it starts coming in, it will be good because it's going to get us disciplined. It will be bad because they are going to come up with a stick, and we will need to have that kind of tools to sort of show that we are compliant to that. So responsible AI is about being bold but being thoughtful at the same time. And I think that would be another area to just tease into the panel. And then the final 2 things are, one is really around building that data, that underlying data, to avoid the whole garbage in, garbage out type capability that might happen with AI. So that underlying data platform, we are very passionate in Telenor. Unless you get that right, a lot of the benefits you want in the network space is simply not going to come. And then the final point is the thought leadership piece. I go back to what I said at the beginning. As telcos and as this community, we need to start to celebrate some of the successes. Yes, there is a lot of hype. Yes, Gen AI is still immature and not as accurate as we would like it to be. And deterministic AI is actually much better. But let's show some thought leadership even on that. I think if we can get these 5 dimensions working well, then the use cases start to benefit in the areas that we believe there will be a lot of benefit. So that's all I wanted to just set the scene for you, Ray, and of course the 2 of us are now going to look at the panel to give us a little bit more wisdom. Thank you all for listening.
Amol, thank you very much. So obviously we can come to the elections during the lunchtime.
Yes.
I'm sure plenty of opinions on that as well, but I'd like to start off by giving our panelists the opportunity just to pick up on anything that you mentioned there in your opening speech. Is anybody, Ahmed, you've got a question?
I like very much the points that you raised. I'll just maybe tick one of them, because otherwise we will consume all that stuff. So it's the point on where in the network is AI more valuable or would have more impact. So what we did in Deutsche Telekom, we looked into life cycle of networks. So from plan, design, build, run, so operate, cross-functional and security. And we also discussed with a lot of partners. And we figured out that number 1, by far, is the operational part. Mm-hmm. And next to that is the planning and security. So even though security as such, security will become a huge topic, and I think we will discuss that today. So the other part, there are other parts like, for example, design, which we felt that it's only an assistant because luckily the level of intelligence needed in design is not yet, AI is not there yet. So happily that we still have some jobs for some time, so design is still not a contended area. But this is how we've seen it. If this
that makes total sense. And operation is the most obvious because it's the most suited for AI. There's a huge amount of telemetry data we get from our networks.
Yes.
And AI is very well built in order to sort of process that very quickly and give us insights to be proactive and predictive. So totally agree with you.
Yep. Adding to that, what Ahmed said, I just like to add my experience. When we started roll out telecom in Japan, Rakuten Mobile. So we started in 2019, and we know that we are the first in the industry deploying the solutions in the cloud native functions and virtualized functions. So definitely we need to go with AI. We are a greenfield operator. We don't have the data, but we start capturing the data from the day one itself, and from the probes, from the milliseconds to the aggregated minutes. So that's how we started. I mean, we follow that, AI is our DNA. Rakuten Mobile is one of the group companies in the Rakuten ecosystem. So we have the ecosystem data. 70 plus groups are there in that, in the Rakuten Mobile, including e-commerce, fintech. And what I'm trying to say is we have a lot of subscriber data it is. So adding to that, we have our data, which we started day one with capturing it. On the top, we built our AI models as talking about planning, because that's main thing, because we went in the domestic roaming initially. So we know where the consumption is happening, where the data, where the users are. And we have done, according to that, our operations and building the AI models on the top. Definitely, AI plays a crucial role at this kind of era, what I can see that, because of the data is more viable today. That's what we have used, and that's how we have built our network. In the span of 3 years, we have rolled out more than 350K cells across pan-Japan, covering around 99.2% of population, which is a massive achievement for us.
Yeah. So I'm sure that the collection of data, obviously Rakuten Mobile started in a different place.
Yeah.
You're starting at a point where you've already got an awful lot of data to deal with.
We've got about 180 years worth of data. We are in a slightly different place. But yes, I agree with you in terms of fragmentation and how we create a consolidation would be key.
Okay. Nick.
Just wanted to build on the use case point that Ahmed and Amol both made. And it's pretty consistent with what we see. We've surveyed in the TM forum over 20 different operators and where they're focusing their automation efforts. Pretty consistent picture. The question I think we need to keep asking ourselves is not to let this just become a cost reduction exercise. We see a lot of the emphasis on solving the challenges of retirement cliff, solving the around 30% of OPEX that goes into network operations cost. Rightful targets, important things to do. We're all concerned about free cash flow. But at the same time, there's not enough conversation, in our view, on the customer experience impact. And to do that, actually looking at individual use cases or use case areas kind of rat holes you in an area. It may be the right place to start in experimentation. But if you're thinking about how our customers experience us, quite often a network fault requires multiple different teams to get engaged, from frontline support all the way through to a deep specialist. And there's ways to leverage AI in those use cases to problem solve across and join up what would typically be an email chain internally, these kind of faults. There's also a link to the hot topic at the moment, which is network monetization, which is that in order to stand up some of the open gateway Camara use cases the TM Forum is very close to, we need to automate elements of the network. So I think when we're talking about use cases, we always have to bear in mind, what's the business driver? If it's just cost reduction, it's going to push us down a path. We'll probably be pretty happy with the results, but you can't cut your way to growth.
Hence the large number of use cases that you were able to identify. Chatting to Ahmed before there, we were looking back at the past year. A lot has changed, but I just want to get a sense from the panel now. Are we more or less confused about the role that AI will play in telecom compared with a year ago? Because the hype circle might be on the way down, but it's still enormous. Juan Manuel, if we can start with you. Are things clearer for you now than they were a year ago in terms of the role of AI?
Yeah, I think here we'll be on the optimistic side. No? I think we are less confused, although maybe tomorrow something appears and we confuse us again. No? But I would say we started a few years ago with AI, and with the traditional AI, with the predictive things, trying to understand that, applying them to use cases, looking that it really works, it can really help. We set up a strategy, and we were working with that. And I think a year and a half ago, the ChatGPT came, and Gen AI, all these kind of things. And then I think that was a bit of a confusion. I think everybody, that was to save the world. We could do everything with that, or not, or whatever. And it took us some time to figure out that, of course, Gen AI is an amazing thing, have a lot of possibilities, but it's not going to replace the traditional AI. For a lot of use cases, it is another world. And now I think we have had the time, or at least in Telefonica, to settle up this hype, to really understand that technology, with talking with all the vendors and all the market, and put that where it really adds more value, and setting, again, the strategy. And I think we now, at least in Telefonica, I think we are now in the execution mode. We have settled this up. Again, I think this goes as fast, at least myself was super surprised of ChatGPT, and I'm leading the AI in Telefonica and in the networks for a while, and even me, when I saw that and I started playing with that, I said, this is really amazing. I wasn't expecting this right now. So maybe tomorrow is another thing and we get a bit confused. But I would say right now, we understand better traditional AI, Gen AI, and still a lot of challenges to do that, and to execute. And we will talk about all of them probably here, but I would say I'm more confident we know where we are sitting and what we have to do. Not easy to do it.
Okay, Manish, we'll come to you and then Mabel. But Manish, how do you feel compared to a year ago?
So I think, Amol accused us as vendors that we create the hype. That's
their job. That's their job.
Taking that, I think, my view is, as an industry, I mean, if you just look a little bit back in the rear view, right? I mean, we've talked so much about, the OTT cycle, coming and eating the lunch. We've had the cloud cycle, which came and went, and the telcos in many ways struggled to catch up with these cycles. And in certain cases, one could say even monetization opportunities were missed. Here now, we again find ourselves at a very interesting crossroad where the tech is moving, and the tech's not going to slow down because the demand is enormous. And it's not dependent just on the telco vertical. So let me also say this. There are other industry verticals that are already making huge demands on AI. And just as a vendor, as a supplier, I can tell you, to lay our hands on the GPUs today is a challenge, right? Just the demand is outpacing supply. This is a very rare situation you get to see in the industry. So we are at this juncture. The question now becomes is, what do the telcos do? I tend to break this down into three big buckets. Number one, AI in the network. How are you going to use AI in the network? And are there opportunities to create differentiated networks? And we had this discussion earlier around innovation, where do you go, innovate, et cetera. And this is an area where the service providers, the telcos, should think, are there areas where they can create differentiated networks? We have had the networks where we're differentiated on coverage and capacity, and what differentiation can you create? So AI in the network. Second thing is what I would call as AI on the network, right? Where what can you enable with AI as a set of technologies on your network, including things that Nick touched on. Even if you go in the realm of billing care, customer care, et cetera, where generative AI starts to play a very key role. And then the third bucket, which I think is the most obvious one, at least here and now, is what we call as AI factories. And we've seen that in certain markets where the telcos, and for that matter, governments are also taking note of this, because at the end of the day, what's an AI factory? It's data in, intelligence out. And the question is, can any society, can any country wait to outsource that intelligence? And what do you need to do to create that intelligence? And I'm not talking telco right now, I'm saying broadly across the ecosystems. And there is a demand for AI capabilities to be developed in many sovereign markets. So we're also seeing in certain areas, especially I would say partly in Europe, partly in Asia Pacific, where we're seeing some of the telcos who are already moving to create these AI factories. And so if I sum all of this up, I think there are opportunities in the network, on the network, and even from a monetization perspective. And now, I don't think there is one cookie cutter approach for every telco. Each one needs to think through, work on their strategies and see where do they want to play, do they want to monetize, do they want to work on the OpEx, customer care, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, it's nice to carve it up like that and to get a perspective. Mabel, at Vodafone, is there a clearer picture, or does it seem even more overwhelming than a year ago about the
I agree with the co-panelists, so it's clearer. Now, I'll touch on what Nick said. It's super essential, and at Vodafone, we're very, very focused on what is the outcome that you want to achieve with that. So it needs to be, AI and Gen AI is yet another technology, great technologies, but we need to look at the outcome. For us, customer simplicity are the two ones that are closer to us. We're looking at growth, it's not as close, but we are exploring some use cases on that as well. So it is clearer. It's clearer, the technology, as well as the opportunities and the risk it brings, right? So we see a lot of the partners that went really, really big on this, the risk on cost, because, the CPU. So we really believe that it's clearly both the opportunities and the things that we need to watch out as an industry to get it right. So definitely think it's clearer, and we use that as one of the many other technologies that we can do. Because for autonomous networks, is AI, is Gen AI, but also a lot of the autonomous technologies like, RPAs, BPMs, and so on and so forth.
Yes, it's not just about AI, it's about adding AI to the mix that's already there, right?
I will say, yeah.
Let me add a few more points and then mention the same co-panelists. But in my opinion, basically, there is no confusion. We know how we have to use Gen AI and stuff, but the point is where exactly it's going to be used. That's the main picture, what I can see that. So we are all coming from the data science background. We have GPUs already secured in our network. We are running petabytes of data every day. So the point, what we're trying to figure it out is some of the models which we run, maybe the forecasting models, the prediction models, or anomalies, which are constructed to telecom sector, which are not available in LLMs. Mm-hmm. So I have to do my own intent learning there, meaning I have to invest my time, my resources over there to train the model in the LLM as well. So it's a trade-off. What exactly you want to do with the Gen AI? There is a lot of hype, pressure on data scientists. Basically, everybody wants to use AI, Gen AI stuff. But some of the things like sentiment analysis, like NLP things and convolutional models, which image processing things, those are readily available, which we can take directly from the Gen AI perspective. But the contents which are related to the only telecom sector side, where you have own defined formulas, own defined KPIs, which are not available in the LLMs. That's where you have to invest your trade-off, whether I have to go with the Gen AI or I have to go with the traditional AI, going with my deep learning techniques. So it's not the resource cost, it's the time efforts which you need to spend across. So that's what we're still looking into that. We're still, the standards has to evolve into more into that, how we can use Gen AI. Open RAN is one of the segment which actually evolving towards that. Some of the cases like SON is standard defined, like if you go to 32 spec, so it's been defined already. So those are all we can directly go with the LLMs. But how we implement in the network, because dynamics is keep changing, the RFs keep changing, the subscriber profiles keep changing. That cannot be done to the LLM. And one more challenge, what I can see is the governance, the security. How much amount of data I have to send to, if I go with third-party LLMs, or you have to use any cloud source LLMs. So that comes into the security about the compliance perspective. Every organization having the governance side. So these are all the things which we need to be closely watched. And then definitely we can use Gen AI. I mean, I don't think so there is a confusion, but the point is how to use is a question it is.
Yeah. And Amol, you kind of hit the ground running at Telenor, didn't you? You joined towards the end of last year, right when that wave was ramping up.
I think, I agree with everything the panel has said. I would add one thing. We as a telco group are very good at sort of building something and then launching it and then keeping it stable. This is not going to be stable.
Exactly.
This is going to change every week, every month. So how do you then use, as Madhu said, the models that we know will not be mature, that will change over time? And that would be the big challenge for us. It's not the clarity, we have clarity. But I think the issue is going to be how do you launch a AI-based service to what Manish said and start building a factory? And then the underlying foundation changes because it's obsolete and now I have a new model and a new infrastructure. How do I create that delayering? That is a big challenge.
Yeah.
And can I jump in on that? Because I think your question was, are we more or less confused? I think a panel and a room of technology experts, I'm not sure we were ever super confused. We were sort of questioning where it could go. I think where there is confusion is at the top of the house. And we see a massive difference right now between CEOs and boards who get the potential of AI and are removing all the roadblocks internally and are seeing top line and bottom line impact from AI, who are unfortunately in the minority, and a majority who are still a bit skeptical. And as we start to go, and I think you're absolutely right, Ray, we're just tipping over the top of the hype curve. That'd be how we'd position it. It's a hell of a hype curve, but it's going to be a hell of a downward run on the ski slope. Those boards may just get bored and move on to the next thing and miss the profound nature of what we're talking about. So when you talk about governance, those groups need to be brought in. And to what Amol just said, of this is a moving template. We're not used to governing business in this way. It was said in the previous panel, by the time you've deployed a technology in telco, it's moved forward 2 or 3 generations. So unless we bring the top of the house on that journey and understand the fundamental operating model impact, I think we'll struggle no matter how clear we are at a technology level.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I guess the thing that needs to be done is that you need to get on and show some concrete steps to the higher level, the people at the top of the stack. So we talked last year about being AI native, but the industry is a long way from being that. So maybe we can look now and have a quick chat about what are some of the concrete first steps in relation to automating network operations. What are the things that can be proven and shown to be working? So Nick, if we can come to you first, because I know you've got a couple of examples, but I think everybody's going to have something to say here.
So I think, first of all, and it's come up, I think, in the panel already, skill sets and understanding, particularly when we're talking about the network, can be a challenge. You've often got individuals who spent their whole career, so you're talking 20 or 30 years in the network space. And when we make this a cost-centric argument, we see a lot of resistance from those teams of, what are you telling me, my 20 or 30 years of expertise can now be automated? So you sort of start the conversation on the wrong footing in many cases. But we do see fantastic progress where you can actually bring the team on that journey. And we're starting to see a pattern of the companies who've started that journey earlier. So this isn't actually really about what you've done in the last 12 months reacting to Gen AI. We think the roots of it, and I think several of the companies on the stage have experience of this, started in open and good data governance programs that started probably 5 or 6 years ago. So the business was getting used to the privacy, security, regulatory implications of opening that up, be able to train the models with the right data being available. We also see a trend between that top of the house support and practical impact. And you're right that you need to actually bring that into real examples, show the goods. The challenge can be a bit of a vicious cycle. So if you look industry-wide, as we have the privilege of doing, you can see very meaningful impacts. We've got new services and standards being used to stand up new services, 90% created by Gen AI, based on microservices, network scenarios and other scenarios. So this is real, this is happening, this is having an impact, where we just see there's vast differences in the readiness of the business to get there.
Okay. And Juan, well, from the Telefónica perspective, are there any, real first notable steps that the company has taken to show internally and to show externally as well?
Yeah, for sure. I think, as I did say, we have been working with this for a long time, and there are practical, we use AI in the network today and for the whole last years, and it works. And I think we are far from being AI native, I think, in the industry and Telefónica. And as Nick said, now we have a structural program to go there, and it will take years, and I'm happy and keen to see the poll, if it's 2030 or never, that's a funny one. But I think we have a program structured in 8 projects. One is about use cases, but the others are about fundamentals, data, skills, or we call it new ways of working, toolings and OSS, whatever. So there's a lot to change drastically to become AI company. Even the network itself, now we have to go to softwareization of the network, cloudification. We have still the 2G there, and that's not going to be governed by AI, probably never. I don't know. So that's a huge transformation. The pace is slow. you have to build from bottom up, setting the basis well to be able to progress towards that autonomous network and AI native operation. And again, as Nick said, I think for people, there's a resistance to change the way you work, but I would say we know how to do that. And AI is quite new, but automation, I've been in Telefónica for 20 years, 23, and I started doing automation, rule-based, whatever it was, but we have been doing that for a lot of time. And you have to involve the people that know and show to them, he talked about the hype before. If we think AI is going to be like this Terminator, Skynet, that is going to govern the network and nobody else is going to touch, that's not the way. So we are thinking more in AI like, for example, assistance to the people, making the job easier, helping them to be more productive, to focus on things that we need really, I don't know. I think we have to set up this message clear and transform. But on the other hand, while we are transforming, and this is going to take a huge transformation with Telefónica, we are 110,000 employees, a 100-year company this year, last month, so I have to say, it takes a while. On the other hand, you can use AI. We're using that across the whole cycle. As DT, we did the same. We call the whole life cycle, and then we put the domains, radio, core, and we did this matrix, and we try to understand what we can use. And we have a project for each one, no? And we are aiming to reach level 4 of the TM4 end of next year. So that's a lot to say, probably for some processes. So we are using that in planning, so to forecast traffic, that kind of things. We all are using that, and it works very well. No? We are now piloting digital twins and things more complex that will take more time. In operations, as you said, we are using predictive maintenance. We use that. In Germany, in some operations, it works for certain scenarios, and it predicts things. Anomaly detection, we are now launching a huge observability project across the group. And anomaly detection is very useful, and as he said, once you have the data, it works. The algorithm works, there's no doubt, and it's not rocket science or something we have to wait 5 years, and it's getting results right now. We use it for energy efficiency, for example. No? It's power saving features boosted by AI. We have all deployed across the networks. And one that we are most, or at least me, excited is customer experience, really. So we have created, and that's something we have done internally, AI models to be able to understand the experience of our customers. So based on all the network KPIs, we have trained models for mobile broadband, for Wi-Fi, customer experience indexes. Now we used to launch a poll, 1,000 customers, and say, are you satisfied or not? And with 1,000 thing, we try to understand the quality of the network of a country, and we couldn't do more. And if you said no, then you ask why, and then you don't know what. So now we have trained these models with all these answers, and we are able to predict if a customer would answer satisfied, neutral, or dissatisfied, based on and not only what this cluster of customers would answer, but why, because the model is explainable, and so we can really manage the network based on that. And that's AI, and that's machine learning, and that's a trained model, and that works, and that's been working for 5 years in our networks, in our DNA. No? And so I would say, yes, we have a huge things coming. It is super difficult. We'll talk probably about data. There are a lot of challenges, skills, but we've been working on AI, all of us, for the last 5 years, and there are AI real cases working in the network, so we don't have to be frightened of this super hype. No, it's a valuable tool, and tool like we have another tools. This is probably more powerful, but it's not something of the future. It's here.
Okay, and Mabel, from Vodafone's perspective, is this something you take on a sort of piece by piece basis, or maybe even try out in a particular market first?
Yeah. So, going back, to the initial question, I think it is super important, and some of the panelists touch on that AI is a change, right? So it's a transformation. So it's all about the technology, really, really important, but also the people and the processes. So I think it's super, super essential that at the first step, you really consider those 3 circles, because otherwise it's very difficult that you'll achieve an outcome. So that will be one of the things that we will advise. So, and then the other thing is that when we started the journey, similar to what you guys have said, is you look at the data and you look at, what is the quick wins? And, in operations, in the assurance side of things, we've done quite a lot of the stuff. And yes, we usually pick a market. Sometimes we pick a large market because there is more of it, and then you see the results, bigger. Sometimes, a smaller market give us more the flexibility and the agility. So depending on the use case, we use a market to start with, and then the challenge comes into the scale across the markets, right? So I think this is a challenge that we see. So start small is what we will say, and then see how you can scale. Sometimes we don't believe that certain areas can be scaled across all the markets because it might not make business sense. Some automation or AI is very particular for certain markets because it's a challenge for that. Others, are very much scale. So we look at the opportunity and the scale and how much is a completely redo and reuse side of things. So yeah, I would say, focus on the quick wins, but also keep an eye on the scale and keeping up to date, as Amol was saying, right? Because the reality is that, and we've seen it, from learnings, you put it, one of the tool sets change, and then the whole thing gets destroyed, right? So it's not something...
Spinning plates,
exactly.
Isn't it?
So it's not a technology that you leave there and they say, okay, it goes on its own. It has to live in the life cycle of everything.
Okay.
So as you scale, is that maintenance and that run that needs to be very much a scale. And the last thing I will say is that usually when operators like us look at the outcomes, you want to reach the outcome for customer or simplicity at the bigger. And sometimes we dismiss the innovative part of the new technologies. They need to come automated by design, right? So yes, focus on the 4Gs, on the 3Gs, on the 2Gs, but all the new ones, they have beautiful technology embedded, some that we can put on, but let's start bringing that through the life cycle already automated. And I always joke, then my team doesn't exist because digital is embedded with everyone, right? And that's the ambition that we also want to have, is that, focus on that as well.
Okay. Ahmed and then
add a quick
Manish.
thing. So I agree with all what's said and use cases, but also to go back to Amol's point when in your speech you mentioned that the use case perspective is one perspective, but let's come from another perspective. There are 3 steps that we can take. One on data. And what happens is that with predictive AI, we did not have that demand on data because it was very specific. So if you get one piece right, you can do AI. But with generative AI, it becomes very different because we need to look into data consistently, from data cataloging to the ontology of data and relationships. So as Nick was saying, to connect the dots and have root cause analysis that cross domain, then you need completely different level of data cleanness and data preparedness. So data, we have to work on data if we want to be serious about AI. The second part is the combination of the skills and the tools. Also, we recognize, and also your point, Nick, is absolutely correct. If I have people who have 20, 30 years of experience in networks, I'm not expecting them to become data scientists. And I'm also not expecting them to go to a data scientist to do anything on AI. We need a mix. We need them to give them tools to empower them to, with no code, low code, manage AI, create a new AI application. So you need the right tools to have that. Then you can empower the organization underneath. Then you have everybody working on it. And then with that, finally, the whole organization becomes centralized and decentralized. You centralize a governance, but you decentralize the implementation. And then I always say that AI is a marathon, it's not a sprint. So this is something that we will continue to work on until we retire. It will not stop.
Okay. Manish, I want to come to you and get what you're hearing from your customers, and then Amol, I know you've got a couple.
Yeah, I think a lot of the points the panelists have already covered, and I kind of really agree with them. I'll say just one additional thing. I think one of the things that's very clear with AI is the number of use cases. And I think it's easier to imagine a new use case. Every day you can just imagine more use cases than you can think of. So the question really becomes is how do you pick and find what's the right use case or use cases to attack? And one of the simple 2x2 metrics that I typically use in the discussions is, hey, look at your CapEx, OpEx spend, sort it out. Where is your biggest spend happening? And then look at another axis of your data layer. Exactly the point. Where is your data readiness? And between those two, you're going to identify the sweet spots of use cases you can get initiated. Getting initiated is absolutely essential. And I can't agree more with the panelists around people and process. I think the technology, again, is the easier bit, as was said earlier as well. It's the people and the process and upskilling that Amol touched on. That's the challenge. That's a real challenge. So getting initiated, I think, is important. It's a few set of use cases.
Okay. And Amol, I know that you've been working on a number of particular step points at Telenor. If you can tell us a little bit about those.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I'm just trying to reflect on what the panel has been saying. There are a few use cases that we see that tick most of the boxes the panel mentioned, in terms of, are they really going to give us a benefit? Are they pervasive enough that everybody would get interested in them? Would it actually matter to the board, and so on? And so one area that we have now started to look at quite earnestly is energy consumption in the networks, because we believe that is actually ticking a lot of different boxes, from sustainability, from customer experience, from cost, and just from overall being good citizens in the industry. And it's actually something that, again, AI can help us a lot. I mean, we now are partnering with a lot of our vendor partners in terms of asking them to become more intelligent in their AI solutions, so we can sort of selectively turn off networks where we feel the demand isn't there or the usage isn't there, but at the same time be ready to dynamically turn them on to full capacity if needed. And that is already showing us almost 10% saving in power, which, if you can imagine Telenor's total power bill, that is something that the board suddenly wakes up and says we must do AI, to Nick's point. So I think we need that kind of galvanizing use cases. Other big area for us, which is a massive pain point, is obviously in the Nordics. We build a lot of fiber, we build a lot of fixed wireless access, we build a lot of 5G. And as all of us in the room know, that is a very, very intensive task and is prone to a lot of errors and callbacks and repeat visits. Again, huge amount of data that we have. We haven't just used it intelligently enough. And now we are starting to look at that and say, can we equip our engineers who are actually doing this with all of that repository real time with an AI-enabled assistant that can sort of avoid any missed appointments or repeat appointments or any kind of revisits that just keep adding cost. So, and that has a customer experience benefit, because often the customers are going to call and say, when am I going to get connected? And it will be a wonderful thing to sort of go back to them and say, you already are. And we've sort of used AI to do that. So I think we need to think beyond the sort of standard use cases, of which there are many, many, and be very selective in what we go for, because that's where I think the industry will see the most value.
Okay. I'm conscious of time here, and there's a number of talking points we still want to get to. So I'm going to come to the audience in a minute and see if there's any burning questions for the panel. But I just want to touch at this point on the topic of the kind of infrastructure support that the network operators need as they consider how to automate their network operations. There's a lot of talk, about what can be done, what can be processed in the cloud, and of course there's a data issue there, security issue there. So is there a big infrastructure consideration here, apart from the fact that it's really hard to get hold of certain GPUs? So Manish, if we can start with you, and this is really in the news right now, isn't it, about who might be buying what GPUs and then using them for something else?
Okay, I think infrastructure implications. There are plenty we can address and tackle this topic on multiple dimensions. Let me just take a few. Number one is the silicon ecosystem. You've got to look at the silicon ecosystem, the GPU ecosystem, what's happening. And I think the good news is there's a lot of innovation that's already happening in there. And we're going to see diversification on the silicon ecosystem itself. What I mean is there are going to be more GPUs coming in from different players, and that's good news. So we will have diversification in the supply chain. Number two, just a little bit, I'll get in the weeds. There are also infrastructure challenges around getting networking, because it's not about just the GPU. You've got to get the storage and the networking right so you can feed the GPUs effectively, and so there is more work to be done to get the networking piece right. And so there is, again, good news. There's more work already being initiated in the industry to even get to Ethernet-based solutions, get 800 gig Ethernet, et cetera, which is all very critical to, again, create these open ecosystems, open platforms, and create scale, diversity choice on the infrastructure side. That's one. Second way you can just slice and dice the infrastructure aspects is around power and cooling. You've got to look at, when you're talking about these systems, these platforms are power hungry. GPUs are power hungry. And so both from a power and then cooling, especially, and the implication again there is in many cases we have to start thinking about direct liquid cooling, standardization of that needs to happen in the industry, and so there's work that's getting initiated around that. And then I'll stop at this last one, which is the third one, is where are you going to place this infrastructure as a telco? And power cooling puts the constraints, so you have your national and regional data centers, you have your edge locations, and where is the right one? And I think where we are right now, you're going to see a lot more of, if you're going, more GPU heavy, you're almost in many cases limited, at least the scale systems I'm talking about, inside your data centers, right? On the edge, you can have certain lower form factor accelerators, especially on the edge locations. So you can have that because you're going to be constrained by power and cooling capabilities that you have available. So these are, it's a complex puzzle piece that you have to work your way through and then identify what's the right infrastructure, where do I place, and then is the ecosystem open enough in terms of the needs that you have.
Okay. Yeah, Nick, quickly, and then I'll come to you,
Just
Matt.
one build on what Manish said. You've got to also look at that outside in as well as inside out. So quite often these conversations end up in, where are my workloads going to be? How much am I doing myself versus in cloud? We believe AI is also going to change what enterprise customers need in terms of creating demand for edge. So you've also got to think about what does that do to my infrastructure planning, where I may need to locate compute close to customer premises, and that creates all of the implications Manish just talked about. So all too often in the industry, we're thinking about our network, our needs. There's actually an opportunity here as well to think and plan, and that may offset some of the inevitable costs we're talking about.
So adding to the points mentioned by the Manish, so we have our own cloud platform, Rakuten having their own cloud platform. So we have we capture every telemetric logs getting from the system, coming from the base station to the subscriber APN gateway as well. So now when you do the scale in, scale out, there are few things which we need to look into that. That's what we normally do that. That's how our AI model does that. So before getting to that, standards are also evolving towards that. Like NWDAF is one of the network functions. Basically what subscriber is doing, what kind of application, right? And when you tie up with this RIC solution, RAN intelligent controller, where you can deploy your AI modules on the top, which you can play on the RAN side. So overall, when you try to marry these two functions via own app functions, so you will see that where I have to do the scale out, what application, what cell or what cluster, at what time the traffic is getting consumed. That's where we are playing our energy consumptions. That's where we're optimizing our resources. So of course, definitely when we're talking about, when you go with the AI models, definitely the consumption of the power is more expensive. If you see the statistics, like 60% of the energy consumption is happening in the RAN, and the remaining 30 to 40 is coming on the cloud, basically CDCs, data centers. So the RAN, in the RAN, 60%, hardly 15 to 20% is being used. The remaining are 40 to 50% are only for the coverage, right? So there you have to play. That's where you have to play very smartly, not only with the automation. That's where your AML models will come into picture. That's where your RIC control is giving you a platform over there. You can deploy your AI models, understand what's happening in the core, what applications are being used, and then try to deploy on the RAN segment. That's how we have to do stitch by stitch. So now, implementing this AI model is one kind of set, but deploying is one more set. So the biggest challenge what we see today is how to test my AI models. I'm not looking to my F1 score, I'm not looking at my gradient or precision recalls. When I deploy any model into the network, any change in parameter leads to so many diversions, right? So to do that, we need to have a digital twin kind of application where you can test your model and where you can simulate your model. So we don't have such tools, we have to implement ourselves. So that is something which we are in-house developing, those kind of things. So any operator or any vendor talking about AI, they should have their own test tool, not as a traditional test tool. When you put the model, you have to simulate the actual traffic in the actual consistency. So that's something which we have to develop in-house tool. And the second thing is how you take it into the production, right? So when you go to production, we'll see a lot of issues in the network. So you should have CI/CD pipelines over there. So when you give a patch, it has to be implemented exclusively, aggressively. We cannot go with the P, or you cannot make the cell down for a couple of hours, a couple of minutes. A lot of traffic will be distorted. In countries like in Japan, every minute is countable. If we see the outage close to 2 to 3 minutes, we have to send our apologies to MIC. So these are very restricted complaints are there. So these kind of things needs to be implemented in the network when you're going to the production. So there's a lot of ecosystem is involved over there. Mm-hmm. So it's not resources, but how you use resources effectively. When you put your AI modules, leveraging these kind of platforms, definitely we have successful solutions in the network.
Okay. Amol, I want to come to you for a quick comment here, but I just want to say I'm going to go to the floor for a question straight after this. I can see one over there. But Amol, in terms of the infrastructure, because
I would say that on the infrastructure side, we also have to now be cognizant of the fact that we have to start aggregating the infrastructure and find ways by which we can run multiple applications on the same infrastructure. Going back to Manish's point, these infrastructures are very power hungry. And I have now sat in a lot of conversations for many years where radio requires its own custom silicon, AI requires its own GPU, the processing that we do in the core really needs an Intel architecture. Okay, but I'm really definitely not going to be able to invest in 3 different sets of infrastructures going forward. And especially because the packet processing at the latency that we need is now getting to the point where a lot of the chipsets are able to do some of the things we wanted them to do. So we as an industry should also need to push now quite strongly on how can we get a same set of compute infrastructure to deliver multiple applications, whether it's AI, whether it's RAN, whether it's other things, as opposed to building, vertically integrated stacks for each of those applications, which then add power and energy and so on. But yeah, that's a call out to the industry, and then we should go to the audience.
Yeah. So let's, I did see, I can see a hand up over there. If you can say who you are, where you're from, and your question for the panel, please.
Hello, Francis Haysom from Appledore Research. A lot of the discussion I've heard about AI and autonomy, I put it in the sort of picture of being, we're looking to mechanize the processes that we do at the moment. We want to make a better NOC process, or we want to make a better planning process. One of the things, another example in AI is that when you look at things like visual recognition, for example, the major leap forward in visual recognition using AI processes was when we stopped trying to tell AI how to do a process and we allowed it to discover how you identify a cat in a picture or a person in a picture. And I wonder whether the challenge that we have as an industry is that we're looking for a sort of perfect AI replacing something that we already do, rather than AI giving us a solution which maybe does something in a completely different way than a person does. And the question to the panel is, how much are you, as part of your AI initiative, looking at not just how perfect AI could be, how perfect data could be, but actually the reality of human decision-making in your organization and where AI is already better at it by doing things differently? How much are we measuring human intelligence, as it were, and human decision-making in our organizations?
Okay, Ahmed, I think
I can give a start and then I'll leave the others. So I like very much the questions because when we started looking into use cases, the quick wins have this notion of looking into steps on the way. So exactly what you said is that we will look on existing processes. We're not trying to change the process, it's just automating part of the process. And that's, I would say, stage 1 in AI. We're still in that stage 1, the tactical stage, where we're trying to get our hands dirty, understand more, get into the problems. But the second stage, which we ought to do, is actually to rethink the entire process end to end. And that is a third change. So the third stage would be that we let AI decide how to not maybe implement the process, but have a diffusion, not a process, something different, which we don't know what would it be. But we are still in the phase 1. So there's still 2 phases to come. And I acknowledge what you said.
But my question is, are you measuring the effectiveness of human decision-making in your organization? Because that seems to be a key thing. Without that knowledge of how effective we are in decisions in planning, in capacity management,
I think that is reflected in the in the results of every year. So we can see that as it go, but of course some decisions would only appear over time. There is not such a mechanism easily to actually quantify and measure the decisions. If we can also do that with politicians and politics, that would be fantastic, but it's not yet there. So, but we are at least trying to measure the AI side of things.
I can give a clear example, which, and again, is not, I think we probably are all working through it. So we have seen that automation, it's good because humans make errors, right? We all make errors. Anybody who has touched the network made an error. I did, as well. So we do measure and we have use cases, to bring that error down. And our engineers acknowledge that, one of the use cases is what we call have the second pair of eyes, like with an AI agent, right? So instead of having a lot of really subject matter experts, we all have those subject matter experts, but AI or the Gen AI can be that, subject matter expert that can, drive to the right decision. So we are starting to see that on the change area, where when there are not that many human errors, but when they're pretty noisy, right? And it's an area that they might not bring simplicity or cost reduction, but it's an area that we're starting to realize that we as humans should leverage from technology when they have a better driven position. So that's one area that we are exploring at Vodafone, where we're using them as the ones helping us to not make errors.
Okay, thank you. Very quick comment from Nick. But
I think it's a great question. I think you can map how ready from a management layer down the organization is as to whether they're asking that question. People are very comfortable in call centers for some reason. We just think call center people are not valuable or something, but very comfortable to say Gen AI will do a much better job of call summary of sentiment analysis than a human being. I think it has the time, it can do it more accurately. As we get closer and closer and closer to the sort of belly of the beast in terms of network operations, there is more resistance in terms of that. But it tends to start, I think, as both the other panelists have said, in terms of saying, okay, we can see now that more of the time the AI is on parity or making a slightly better decision. And we see for, say, field force operations, understanding that not all of your field force are experts in everything. So it will deploy depending on the use case. And the AI will typically get that better than a human who even knows that field force quite well. So I'd say it is embedded in the logic. Where the politics creeps in is where actually the workforce doesn't really want it to happen. And so it's quite a good metric actually to say, if you're not asking that question, maybe you're not really moving towards being AI native.
Okay, thank you. Now I'm getting the red flashing light to say we're running out of time, but I do want a very quick comment from you, Amol, before we end on the security implications and about whether the industry really understands the security implications of the greater use of various AI tools. Is this something that's, that you have to spend a lot of time thinking about?
Yes. We do spend a lot of time thinking about this, and we all are sort of avoiding the nightmare scenario where something comes in the press about something about our customers in a model that something else read. So for me, it is about being thoughtful about the choices we make in terms of the architecture we build, the hardware we buy, the models we train, and ultimately goes back to what I said before. There are two forces here, Ray. There is a force that is going to say if you're not fast enough, you're going to miss the innovation. And there is a force that's going to say if you're too fast, you're going to mess up. So I think you need to sort of find a balance here.
Yeah.
To build that secure infrastructure is a must. But at the same time, if you spend 2 years building a secure infrastructure, you're going to miss the innovation. So I think there is a trade-off that we'll have to do. But it's the choices we make and building a combination of LLMs, hardware and software with the use cases on top that you know what's going on in your organization would be the only way to solve it.
Right. Okay. Thanks very much, Amol. We do have to end there. And before we move on, we are going to take a quick look at the poll results, the poll we had at the beginning of the session. And the question we asked was, when will AI enable telco networks to be truly zero touch without any human intervention? Never has got a pretty big, I thought never might be quicker. So, 37% are saying never, 42% after 2030, and 21% by 2030. So that's quite a task. Let's take that as an action point.
Our vendors are 2030.
So fantastic. Thank you very much for voting. The polls are not closed, so you can continue to vote in these polls. But that brings us to the end of session 2. We're going to be back on stage this afternoon at 2 p.m. UK time. That's 1400 hours. For session 3, which is creating cloud-native software engineering teams. In the meantime, for us here in the room, we have a leisurely lunch break, which is going to be served in the foyer. And don't forget the pinball and the charity tournament we've got going on over there. For our online audience, don't go away. We're about to start our Extra Shot program. Charlotte's going to be picking up on the AI themes with her guests. So don't miss that, stay with us. But for now, let's say thank you to our panelists here. Great panel.